So, Steve, thank you very much for coming on. It's a pleasure. I thought we'd take just a minute just to introduce you. Not that, to be honest, you'd need introducing to the marketing world. But yeah, let me know, who you are and where you've been, basically.
I'm pretty sure I'm going to need an introduction here. Thanks for having me on, Callum, to the No BS podcast. So my name's Steve Paine. I'm marketing manager for the UK for SISTRIX. SISTRIX is a SEO data tool. Hopefully you've heard about it. That's more important that you know about that than me, to be honest, because my job is to put that before me. But 6 years here and a big history yeah, maybe we can talk a bit about it in the next, next few minutes, next 20 minutes, whatever you're planning.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah, yeah, exactly. You're there from Sistrix. That's the main thing. But your insights and your knowledge from over the years, just as valuable in my eyes. But yes, Sistrix is a tool that if you haven't heard of it, you should definitely at least have a look at it because it's a wonderful tool. Um, but yeah, the last 6 years you've been at Sistrix, I imagine it's been a lot has happened. um, and obviously Sistrix has been around for a while now. Just take me through how you came into Sistrix and what your first sort of impressions were when you arrived.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? You join a new company, you never really know. You have that honeymoon period where you never really know about a company. Um, so it was 2018, I believe it was. I was coming out of doing my own stuff, and I'm in here. I'm here in Bonn, in Germany. Anyway, I live here, and this is the headquarters of Systrix. And someone mentioned the job to me. Said this is a good company. Go and have a look. I had a look, got the job, and got through that honeymoon period and realized, yeah, this is a very serious and transparent company with a great product. So I'm very happy to have been here 6.5 years. It's been a great journey, and yeah, as you said, some things have changed, not least in the last 12 months, to be honest.
Yes, yeah, I think it was the case, isn't it, that those 5 years like compact themselves, and then the last 12 months are so fresh, it's out of the brain. What would you say the before jumping into sort of the nitty gritty? What would you say is the big differences over the last 12 months, keeping in most recent times, that you would say from when you started? I imagine everything's different, but is there anything that highlights the last 12 months?
Oh, competition for Google in terms of EU, in terms of AI, in terms of all the other tools that are trying to get into this new AI generated niche. So it's good. It's really good. We Our main focus, of course, is Google search, but we're a search platform visibility company. We cover Amazon, we cover other platforms as well. If things switch to another platform, we've got the technology to switch. It's not a problem. But it's great. So it's great to see the competition there. It means Google's going to be moving faster over the next 12 months because the pressure is on. I think we're going to see, as we've probably already seen in the last 12 months, some quick decisions being made by Google. Maybe some of those backtrack over the time, but we'll see, I think, a different Google over the next 12 months, definitely. And that competition for me is the number one thing.
Absolutely, absolutely. Competition is what keeps us moving forward. In terms of the specifics of your not just your role but Sistrix as a whole and how it markets itself, how would you explain to someone that isn't quite up to scratch on the way that how deep content can really go? Because your role as marketing as is it marketing manager? Sorry, marketing director. I don't want to get that wrong. Uh, is of course to strategize and create. How would you say that those last 12 months have influenced the content that is coming from you guys from the data side?
Yeah.
Because you know how quickly data can move when Google tries to change so much.
Yeah. I think, like most companies, we have a good palette, a good menu, sorry, a recipe book of things that we use, strategies that we use. We're in a very good position here at Systrix. I'm in a luxury position for me. We're a company that's almost still in a startup phase, and yet is 15 years old and in profit. It gives us without we haven't got any investors here. We're uh, an a founder-owned company. It gives us a lot of flexibility, a lot of agility as well to make changes very, very quickly. Callum, go back to the question. What was the key question there?
I ju- how the last 12 months have influenced how
Yeah.
you've.
Okay. So yeah, we've got this big menu book of recipes. It's a matter of just changing, the recipe book. It's just a matter of changing the menu to suit the customer. We've all got recipe books. We've hopefully all tried every channel already. We're ready to go. It's a matter of creating the right menu at any one time. I mean, we were in a good position. A few years ago, we decided to build the data journalism team, which is there to build stories out of our data. We're ahead of AI. Of course, AI doesn't get to see our data, the engines, or maybe our AI will get to see our data, but no one else will get to see our data. So we're in a great position to be able to work ahead of AI to create stories that aren't already there. So, and I think we should talk about this a bit more. So, like working ahead of AI is one of the ways you're going to succeed, I think, next year in marketing and content marketing, definitely.
That's a very it's a very great way of putting it. I don't think I've heard anyone use the sort of recipe is the recipe that's used, but the menu is what's tailored and changed. That's a very good way of putting it. And I think you're absolutely right. It's the staying ahead of AI. Once you ask yourself that question of, because I think no, that question is very good, especially for just thinking about it now, for how how you see things going forward, because you can use data, existing data, to go forwards. But like you said, if there's nothing in front of you, it has to be created brand new. And I think that's something that, like I said, AI can't do, and it's something that is slightly lost since AI started to become so big. Um, I think, yeah, sort of tailoring into that, obviously AI is something we're going to go into deeply later on. Um, but I just wanted to dig into the content that you guys you mentioned a moment ago, the data-led journalistic content. How was that sort of, I mean, decided is a sort of bad question, but how did you guys decide that this is the approach we want to take, and that we know that we can make it work for us?
Yeah. So if you're in digital marketing, you're always trying to think of new ideas. And as I say, staying ahead of the curve. In this case, AI. We don't want AI to overtake what we're doing. You have to think of ways, and every company has this. You have your own unique data. You have your data internally that no one else has used yet. Use that to create stories. You've heard people talk about the experts within the company. There's always an expert within a company. There's always a story within a company, and most of the time, there's data as well. So many people are really good at leveraging expertise within companies. So use your own experts. Um, Brand stories, of course, this is a very old technique, but using data, I believe, is something that we have to do. And when you're a company like SISTRIX, which creates as much data as we do every day and has such a history of data, over 16 years of SERP's archives now, we can really benefit from that and start to bring information to SEOs, be it blueprints for success, um, case studies on things that we think are going wrong. We've got the data to sort of dive into that. We haven't got all the information there, but we can make great insights about what's happening based on our data. So the data journalism team, was an idea I brought up because I'd worked in a journalistic. I had a journalistic sort of history anyway. I wasn't a trained journalist, but I built my own websites as a tech blogger in the early 20s before the sort of iPhone kicked off. Was very busy there, and we were there breaking news and making news. And this is what journalists do. And I had worked with journalists in the past, and during that time, I worked with journalists, and I learned that this breaking and making news is the only way to really get eyeballs. Now, eyeballs can be digital eyeballs, so it could be links and traffic. It can be real eyeballs. It can be other journalists. It can be other things. So staying ahead and breaking and making news is really the key. And so I thought, okay, so let's take the data, let's make our own news, and let's share that. And if that is an advantage to SEOs, so if they can take some of those examples, for example, Sector Watch, where we look into everything from tents to rucksacks, it might hit someone that might go, okay, this is useful. I can use these examples in my work. Visibility leaders, where we take a larger sector and we look at informative content and commercial content. As an SEO, you can look into examples there in our database of information and try and use that. So I think we got to a point where with the data journalism team, we've got, well, actually, number one, we've got a nice little brand of team. This is actually a great thing to have anyway. We've got a lovely little data journalism team, people and then we've got the data, hopefully that you trust, and the stories coming out of that are useful for people to share and then useful for SEOs to use. So that whole, everything right down the chain, I think it's really worked well with the data journalism team.
Yeah, I think it was a absolutely golden move, to be honest, by you. That sounds like, I mean, the whole setup, like I said, the
Tell my boss
process.
that. Is that being
I'll
roasted?
write a letter. I'll write a letter.
No, I really enjoyed it, and it's been great working with the SEO experts, the journalists, the data experts, and being sort of senior editor for that, and just guiding the product, as it were. It's a kind of senior editor
Yeah,
role as if it were a mini newspaper, where we've got content products, we're out there trying to find the news, we're going to put that together, we're going to structure it right in the way that SEOs can benefit from it and enjoy reading it. So it's a lovely role. I'm really enjoying it.
absolutely, absolutely. And I mean, it's all tailoring in nicely. I mean, from I mean, the amount of content and the amount of data that you guys have and have published and produced is massive, obscenely massive. Is there any out of that, which is a difficult question, out of that, would you say there are notable, I mean, out of the thousands, notable highlights of success that maybe either surprised you or that you're quite, proud of in terms of the results from either how the data's being used by yourself or other people, or the content in general that's been published?
Well, notable successes have been in areas that have been popular at the time. A recent example is Reddit. What's happening with
Mm.
Reddit. We can all learn a lot from that. We might not be able to replicate it, but we can learn from Reddit. And um, picking up this zeitgeist, this current topic that's popular, and working with that and trying to create news around that is a great way to do it. I mean, obviously, this is what newspapers do as well. Um, we've done some stuff that hasn't been so successful. We did a thing on climate change a couple of years ago, which didn't really get the traction that I thought it might. So, as we work through various topics, we start to learn what works and what doesn't. I think the important thing is you try it and you measure it and you mark down what was successful and what wasn't successful, and you go back and you try and get that recipe book again and go, okay, we don't want that ingredient, we want this ingredient, and then that recipe book can be used in the future. I think one of the areas that I've enjoyed tracking a lot is the UK supermarket sector,
All right.
because that's fascinating. I'll talk about another fascinating one in a minute, but that's fascinating because supermarkets aren't supermarkets. You've got some successful clothing brands in Sainsbury's and Tesco's and Asda now. You've got Tesco Marketplace, which they had as direct in 2018 and killed that because the business didn't quite get everything right. Seeing that grow now and understanding that those are basically massive e-commerce sites. Okay, there's a bit of grocery there, but you've got Tesco Banking, you've got Tesco Mobile, you've got Tesco Finance, you've got Tesco Insurance. Same with Sainsbury's, same with Asda. Fascinating domains, and you really can't categorize those domains. You put them under the supermarket sector, but they're not. They're fashion, they're household goods, they're barbecue, coal, they're all that. And that, I think, is really fascinating to start to see a domain that has many aspects to it, and you can start to understand the businesses that are going on inside it. A recent example, and it does fascinate me, is Forbes. The Forbes.com.
Yeah.
It's a domain name. Yeah, you can almost forget that. There's 10 business units under that domain name. They're all working separately. And if you look at the domain, you can actually see that they work under a different business unit because the websites look completely different and act very differently. So you can understand, okay, that host has probably been managed on a different server by a different team, different setup, different stack. And it's important, I think, to learn about that, because when we see changes in domains, in core updates and stuff like that, it's important to understand there's multiple business underneath that, and that it may only be one part of that business that's been affected, and that the other parts of the business may be stable or even successful. We've seen this before. We've seen examples of websites that have even stayed stable through a core update, and then you go down to the host and directory level, and you see all sorts of activity happening that have sort of cancelled each other out. We've maybe the affiliate site has gone down, but the news parts has gone up. So it's really important. So yeah, that supermarket thing was fascinating to me, just to expose all these business units within domains. So I now think, when I'm analyzing in terms of directory level and host level activity, because these are the sort of important business units that I think separate, projects, SEO projects, e-commerce projects, informative projects, job sites, and all that sort of stuff. Very important, I think, to do that.
Absolutely. I mean, that's very fascinating about the supermarket side of things, because I mean, it's obvious in terms of the way that they have set up and changed over the years. Like you said, Tesco went from being just a get your groceries to, so you can get a phone, probably a job, and get a new bank account, and everything in the
Yeah,
same place.
absolutely.
And
Yeah.
I mean, on one side, it's for the user itself, for a customer, it's very good to have everything in one place. But from a business point of view and from a competitor point of view, it makes the market so much more, so much more. I don't know what the word would be. Everything's changing so much and so quickly that the competition sort of has no choice but to keep going, and it sort of takes over the world of other competitors. And is that how you see sort of edging with SEO as well here online? Have you seen more and more competitors that are smaller starting to take on those those ideations of having separate business but with the same sort of business, and the smaller
Yeah,
business
the
are
classic
cottoning on
one.
to that?
Yeah, the classic one is, an informative content strategy, be it a glossary or a how-to section. DIY.com, B&Q in the UK have this. They've kind of three business units as I see it now. They have standard e-commerce, they have the marketplace, and they have informative content as well. So clearly three different business units working there, three different strategies. And important to understand that, when you're doing SEO analysis of your competitors, to understand what strategies they have active, and to understand whether you can replicate those. You don't want to be trying to do something that you can't replicate. So, Amazon is the great example. It's great looking at Amazon, but trying to replicate Amazon would probably be, well, certainly in the short term, a bit too much of a project, I would say.
Yeah, definitely, absolutely,
Um,
absolutely.
Another good example of a domain which is not really. So, let me ask you a question. How would you categorize the AA?
Recovery service, I think, from the top of my head, that's what I would
Yeah.
say.
You look at the domain, mainly it's a finance business. So they're selling car finance, insurance.
Right.
They have new car and old car sales. So they're an agency as well, and a platform, sales platform. They have a SaaS service, so for mapping and navigation, they have that on there. They have road traffic information updates, so they're an informative website. They have driving lessons. They have, oh yeah, and they do recovery as well. So there's a great example of
Yeah.
you cannot categorize that website. So you have to break it down into sections to understand what part of that domain. And this is where it gets really fascinating with SISTRIX, because we have that data at that sort of high resolution level. It can look down to URL level and start to see competitors at that level and understand how things are working, how things are succeeding. And I think that's important for SEOs to, if you're looking at competitors, to understand the business models that are going on. Very little of a normal domain is SEO. Okay. At least it starts with very little SEO. You have your domain, you have your e-commerce, and then you have about us and the jobs page and how to get to us and all that sort of stuff. And then from there, you start building the SEO. In fact, you can look at the AI. There's probably not too many SEO projects going on there. I would say the informative part of the website is now a clear SEO project. But interestingly, maybe we shouldn't mention it, but their insurance offering is actually a third party being hosted on the AI website. Now, I'm not sure if that's
Right.
allowed these days, is it? Now, it's
Yeah,
not
I
an
don't know.
informative content site. It's actually, of
Mm,
course, something that a lot of people do, which is hosting, someone else's data for them. And most of these websites are pulling in data from other people. It's not an informative thing. It's a platform for sales and that sort of stuff, which seems to be from Google allowed right now, which is quite good. Quite good. Otherwise, the whole industry is going to collapse if they start saying you can't host other people's data in e-commerce. How many e-commerce sites would die if they couldn't take in stuff from another supplier with, over API? Where the content was provided by the supplier, where all the data was. No,
that's crazy.
the world of e-commerce would collapse if Google stopped third-party data flowing like that.
It certainly would. How we would see a huge boom in solo e-commerce stores, like artists and things like that. Essentially, one-off pieces that you can sell that you
Yeah,
can't just pull through.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
where it would boom. But then again, you can't just sell, one lettuce at a time
yeah,
without it.
yeah,
So that would be a huge thing. And do you think Google obviously, I mean, Google are thinking much further ahead than anyone about themselves. But do you think
yeah.
they
I'm
thought
glad you
about how
qualified that. They're thinking further ahead about themselves. Yeah, that's
about themselves
see
than
some of
everyone
that.
else? That sounds
That's
about right.
normal business, I guess. Yeah, that's a bit of
Yeah,
it.
normal
Yeah.
business. But how do you think how do you think what they are seeing from what they've done, especially with AI? How do you think they're looking at the results and not so good results of the past 24 months? And how do you think they're going to use that in the next 24 months, whilst also linking into how data can can change over that time? Because as you know yourself better than me, that whatever Google can change in a month or in a week could impact a year's time. So do you think that AI is going to be more prolific in a positive way or in a negative way with what you guys envision, I suppose?
Hmm. That's a really good question. Our founder, Johannes Boyce, did a presentation, I think last month it was, where he pulled out three possibilities of the future for Google. Um, One is a scenario where the competitors, Perplexity, OpenAI Search, um, win, okay, very quickly and take stuff from Google. The other one is where they fade away. So a bit like voice search, has happened before, 3D TVs, flying
Mm.
cars, there's been a lot of hype about those in the past, but nothing really happened. Um, or the third and much more likely scenario, and there are many examples of this happening in the past, it's a slower uptake than we actually think. And Google has time to experiment and get the data, as you mentioned, and to modify, optimize its offering to its search customers. And this plays into the fact that they now have competition. Things have to change a little bit quicker. We'll see more experiments, I believe, but this is natural and we should expect it. And, SEOs should be feeding back positive and negative, because I believe that Google will listen to customers as well. They must. Whether they act on that feedback is up to them. They will do business first, obviously, but they need to balance that with the way that users use their product or want to use their product. So the likely scenario is things aren't going to change as quickly as we thought. It's now 2 years since OpenAI. In fact, this month, isn't it? November 2022, I believe it
I
launched.
think, yeah, it's definitely 2022.
And we're not. I mean, we're all using AI in our work, or at least most of us are, I believe. But we're still Googling. We're still Googling. It's still the default on Apple. It's still the default on Android. It's still the default on my desktop, on my Chromebook, on many other places. So, the likelihood is that it's going to take longer for things to change, and that Google will have time to do their work. As far as the sort of the details of it, like the AIO box go, for example, swapping out the featured snippet for the AIO box for the end user doesn't make much difference, to be honest. Of course, it makes a difference for that click in the box. We're now, choosing between potential 5 hidden away links within an AIO box rather than a featured snippet, which has a higher single CTR. In fact, the AIO box has an overall a bigger CTR than the old featured snippets box. We measured this.
Right. Okay.
Yeah,
That's an interesting one.
yeah.
I have wondered about these things. So that's a good.
Um, the data so far shows that the AIO box itself, that's a total of all the content within it, will get bigger click rate, higher CTR than the featured snippet box. The problem is, of course, that
Right.
there's 5 links within that box. It's an algorithm within an algorithm, a bit like top
Yeah.
stories. And, although that top stories box is in position 2, you might be position 2.3 within that. And the same with the AIO box, you might be 1.3 or 1.3, whatever, however you want to look at it. So, yeah, for SEO, it's different.
Absolutely. Do you think that the AI overview? How much? I mean, it's just a sort of side question, but how much influence do you think over time will Google allow SEOs to optimize and have a look behind the curtain of how not how they do things, but if they will introduce that competitiveness, even if it's paid, which is more than likely, to
It's
the
really
AI in
interesting.
search?
So there's a couple of questions there is like, how do you get into the box? How do you measure that? So, is it coming to Google Search Console? That would be wonderful to see some sort of data there.
Hmm.
Um, so the current situation is I haven't got the data in front of me, but there are 3 things that we measured. Of the sites that appear in the AIO box, what percentage of them appear in the top 100 of the SERPs? And I really should pull up the data because maybe I can drop a link to you and we can put this in the show notes,
Yeah, absolutely.
which show that I think something like 80% of the time, all those links appear in the top 100. All those, sites appear in the top 100. 60% of the time, the URLs themselves appear in the top 100. So, and then there's a third figure, and I forget what it is. I think 25% of the time there are sites that don't appear in the top 100. Please don't quote me based on what I've just said. I'm going to drop the link for you
We'll have a look at that
and
data. Yeah, but
you'll see the data. But the point is, it's all points towards SEO is the way to get into the AIO box. You're optimizing for SEO, you have a higher chance of being in the AIO box. And this seems to be very clear from the data right
yeah,
now. So that's one way of getting into the box. As far as the paid bit goes,
yeah. I think that's a wait and see sometimes, isn't it?
I don't know. I'm sure they'll test it. I'm sure they'll test it, but we've never
I
seen
imagine so.
paid top stories.
That's true. There have been areas where they just haven't touched that, and it's for the better as well.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah,
and it's
that
only
will be interesting.
informative content. I say only. It's content that's aging. A lot of it is not new. It's really that old evergreen type stuff, which has been written 1,000 times before. Anyone, personal opinion now, 90% of that AIO box content has been written 1,000 times before. If you think you can write it better at this stage, I think you're taking a risk. As personal opinion, there, I wouldn't start
Yeah,
an evergreen content project based on stuff that's been written 1,000 times before. Google's got that now.
I think it would only change if, like you said earlier, the breaking news and the breaking
Yeah,
side of content
yeah.
would be because if you can prove that AI overview wrong, then that's where you go. But it's very unlikely that whatever that says is not accurate now because like the 1,000 iterations that just affirm that
It,
is true. But again, that's another shaky area where
it's true or
history can be
it's
written in a very
yeah,
different
yeah,
way.
yeah. I mean, there's going to be examples, but at this
Yeah.
stage, it's true or it's not so wrong that it's badly misleading. There's truths in it, enough truths in it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there was a huge, there was a lot on Twitter, or X now, when a lot of people went fishing to make our AI overviews wrong. I saw a lot of health concerns because it wasn't correct.
Okay, I
Although
mean,
that may have been edited, but I think Google have managed to completely sort of stabilize that side of things now and make it very clear what can be assumed and what cannot on
given
that
the
front.
amount of AIO boxes out there right now, and we're measuring something like 26% of 50 million. So over 10 million AIO boxes that we measure in the UK. I think it's around the same in the US as well. Given that amount of boxes, there's going to be mistakes in there as well. The question is it less mistakes than humans make? I reckon it is at this
Yeah.
stage.
Probably, and
There's,
it's probably got. We sort of get sort of information from if a human, it's a snowball effect, isn't it? If someone's written a blog and there's one thing that's wrong in there, but everyone thinks that that's the right thing, and they rewrite, and then AI learns that everyone says the same thing, even though there's one thing wrong in it,
could be. I
and they're stuck.
wonder, that famous 6 glasses of water a day thing, you know.
Hmm,
I think if you look back into that, you won't be able to find the source of that. But it's built into
yeah, but that's a myth, isn't it?
uh
I think it's.
yeah, I believe it's a myth,
I think
but
it's a myth. Yeah.
I believe it's a myth. Um, although my wife keeps telling me I should drink more. She's probably right.
I don't keep track anymore, so
Let's test AIO with that and where that came from. I bet it won't be able to find the source.
I bet it doesn't. Let me see if I can test that.
Comes into the collective psyche, doesn't it? There's something about it. Yeah, have a look at it. Have a look. He's on it. While you're doing that, I'm going to try and pull up the data on the AIO boxes.
Oh, I have an AI overview of the origin of this. Apparently, it was from a 1945 decree from the U.S. Food and Nutrition Board, which recommended people drink 2.5 liters of fluid per day. But
Can you confirm that source?
is that true? I can confirm that it was. Oh, I've got the NHS Healthline week.
Yeah, but they may. It's gone into the
But
collective psyche. It's
again,
probably they
again,
just
is
picked it up. I just find the source for it. Find the scientific study. Anyway, let's not waste time doing that. I've got the data for those AIO boxes. Right, 98%
okay.
of cases, at least one of the URLs in the AIO box is in the top 100 SERPs. In
Right.
62% of cases, all domains that are referenced in the AIO box are in the top 100. And in 37% of cases, all the URLs from the overview pages appear exactly as they do in the top 100 SERPs. So that's
Right.
40% where it's one-to-one match. So, and 62% where the domains are in there. So to be, it's pointing towards SEO is the way to get into the AIO box.
That's interesting. I think it's positive. Positive. That's positive data for SEOs and marketers to take, isn't it? Because there is
Yeah.
a lot of worry that it will wipe out a lot of people's, streams. Well, like you said earlier, the topical content of information. But I think that if you continue to create as people have created for years, being human, but also extremely informative from an expert, then like I said, just focus on ranking before AI overviews. Focus on ranking there first
Be
before
ahead
you
of
start
AI. I'm
hoping
not
to
sure.
be an
At
AI.
some point, it will catch up, and then you just have to make news, which is what the fashion industry does. They're pretty good at that, actually, making news. Fashion industry is great at that. They stay ahead of AI. I've got the
Yeah,
figures for
definitely.
the CTRs, by the way. So for the feature snippet in a SERP that had a feature snippet, 10% was position one. Click rate on position one, where the feature snippet was. In a SERP where the AIO overview is in there, it's 12.5%. Click on position one. So
Right. Okay.
Google's not wrong when they say more traffic is going through the AIO box. It's not much, but it's surprising
Absolutely.
when we came up with that data, but that was based on a lot of data.
That is surprising. I think. Yeah. I think it's. I mean, a lot of human behavior is based on the wanting it in one place, isn't it? Rather than having to sort of affirm it for yourselves, depending on the type of person.
Yeah.
Um,
What
yeah,
happens to
definitely.
I got a question for you. What happens to the informational SERPs which used to be, a good, fairly clear 10 choices of information. What happens to those when the AIO summarizes it perfectly and you don't have to scroll down? What do you think Google will do with the next 9 blue positions? Will it
Very good
still put
question.
informative in there?
Um,
Or is it going to get to a point where it knows people aren't going below AIO anymore? We can put commercial stuff in there.
I think you're right. I think commercial will become more prominent. I think maybe
Yeah.
paid as well. I think PPC sort of experts in general will try and lean on informational searches for transactional searches where they can. Obviously, people already do, but I think it'll become more prolific. But I also think Google will also be a bit cheeky and begin to make, because I think they've done it recently. I've seen it a lot where the SERPs will go from 10 to 8, and then
Hmm.
from 10 pages maybe to 5 pages, and then an endless sort of page sort of scenario, or an AI generated sort of, here are the next best 10, here are the next best 10.
I'm pretty
Um,
sure like there's someone at Google that's sitting there going, right, I can craft a SERP that is the funnel that people coming in on position 1 and they read their early information, they do their research, they get that out of the AI box. Then they go to a product box, they see a bunch of products there, no? And then we can take them to a page where obviously will fulfill and they can buy the product. So they got the whole funnel in one SERP. That would be great for Google, right? Just that would
it
be
would,
fantastic. They're so monetizable. Every
absolutely,
SERP, the perfect funnel.
the perfect funnel,
This
especially
is
if they
just
can.
is just what's going on in my head. I don't know if this is going to happen.
No, absolutely. I think it is, because I see it sometimes. I'll be doing even just a most random of searches, and the SERP will be so different from when I started into SEO, because of the, like I said, the AI overview. But then you've got the sponsored shopping. I mean, if you can get find a keyword or search term that gets everything in one, that'd be fantastic. But it's like you get paid shopping, and then paid ads at the top in search, and then the AI overview. If you get news stories, if it's something breaking or trending, and then you've got more sponsored down the end, and if it's
Yeah.
just a full sort of SERP there, that it just seems too much sometimes when I'm searching for things. But
Hmm.
I think they will refrain from that or double down, depending
Yeah,
on how
if they
users.
can refine the user experience there, I think you don't want to make it too messy. Although some people love tons of information. I like it more clean and tidy, but some people love stacks of information. Yeah, who knows? It'd be interesting to watch, and we'll try and track it to see how SERPs evolve, features. We're doing a lot of feature tracking now to see what's happening with various features. We noticed. Don't know if you heard that Google was doing a test in Germany this week. We're taking out some of the travel search features as a
Oh,
test.
right.
They announced they would do a test, so we saw the video box in Germany disappear today. Completely
Oh,
sorry,
right. Okay.
not the video box, the hotels box, flights box. One of them has just completely disappeared. So from the travel industry, they're testing today for the obviously for the EU. You're sitting somewhere outside the EU. You've got the Brexit advantage now. This is
I
it.
don't know how much of an advantage I'd call it, but I have that. Yeah, I mean, I'd be interested to see how that how the data what the data tells us from that, how people are using, how they decide to go through things, because I've seen that and I've used it a lot in the past, even if it is just having a look and not doing anything. But
Hmm.
I've used it quite a lot, so it'd be interesting to see
Me too. Flights
how that.
is a key part of my travel.
I mean, yeah, you want it as
Flights.
easy as cheap as possible, and
Yeah.
if they're taking that away, then it'll be interesting to see how that
It's
that
only a
that
test.
works.
It's going to be back tomorrow.
Oh, right, perfect. Well, if all those changes and the data behind them, SISTRIX will be where it's at if you want to know where what's happening and how the data sort of what it tells us. I
Yeah.
think
Understanding SERP structure is really important to, as you know, to working out the intent for the user.
100%. I mean, I don't want to keep you for much longer, but I've had a very good. I mean, I've enjoyed this entire podcast. It's been very informative, and it's allowed me to get some answers from questions that I personally needed as well. Um, but before we go, I just want to give you the opportunities. Is there anything that you're super excited about, or anything with Systrix that we should look to in the new year, or is that sort of still under wraps?
Ah, what can I say? Ah. can't say anything. Oh,
Can't
yes,
say.
I can. When is this podcast going out? 2nd of December, we have our Christmas charity action. Please go to sistrix.com/Christmas, where you'll see staff live on the front on that page. Click a button and we donate to a charity. We'll give you a wave and you can meet people of Sistrix. You can donate to charity, and it's all going to happen next week. So 2nd of December, please tune into the Sistrix charity action. That's a great one to finish on, right? Thank you very much for having me on. It's been a pleasure to talk. And
Likewise. Thank you
good
so
luck
much
with
for coming on.
the No BS podcast.
Thanks very much. I hope to have you on again soon.
Thank you.